like whatever, this is going to be okay. It's there's a quote that I heard a long time ago, and I don't know who quoted it, but it was basically saying that why are you worrying about the things when time and time again you've solved that problem over and over again? So why are you even worrying about it anymore?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. And today we have yet another amazing guest. And I'm going to make sure I don't butcher this name, but we have Aleks Rybchinskiy. How
Perfect.
do you?
Perfect.
Hey, I love that. Please help me welcome our guest wherever you are in the world. Aleks, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I always like to ask our guests when I start the podcast episode is just to tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Who were you in high school?
Who am I? I'm Aleks Rybchinskiy. I'm a holistic health practitioner about 20 years now. I've rehabilitated some of the most broken people, unfixable people on the planet. Me and my wife have been in practice now together for over 10 years. And I run a jerky company, which 10 years ago, if someone told me I'd be doing this, I wouldn't have thought that would be a thing. So I have the cleanest jerky on the market that I developed from all the knowledge that it took to create something like that. I'm also a neurosomatic therapist and manual therapist, rehabilitating people. And in high school, I was in my head a lot, very athletic, played sports. I had such a wide variety of friends, from goths and nerds to jocks to tech people to artsy people. It was all over the place, and I didn't really hang out with one person or another. I was, while simultaneously having wide different groups of friends, also was very lonely and alone and confused as to where I fit in with all this, because the jocks will make fun of the nerds, but I like talking to the nerds, and I'm a nerd as well. And so I kind of, I'm kind of like a nerd trapped in like an athletic body. And so I like learning about things and like spending a lot of time in my own head and working on my own thoughts and my own struggles, and ultimately liking to help people. But yeah, that's kind of who I was in had school, but also, had mean spells and things like that, and pettiness.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today, like from a journey perspective. Why health? Why beef jerky? Like, how did you get into this realm of health, mindset, fitness? The thing that most, I would say, executives and leaders ignore, unfortunately, because they don't have time for it.
One of the biggest things was my parents, and they're always my biggest supporters. And even though I was confused with what I should be doing, because I didn't have like a passion like my friends in high school, they're like, I want to be this, I want to be that. And to me, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my parents, all they did was observe me. They put me in like acting school because we're immigrants from Ukraine, and my parents are like, well, actors make a lot of money, and our family friends are doctors. They want to be doctors. They'll make a lot of money. And this throwing stuff on a wall until it sticks. And so after I graduated high school, they noticed I started working out, and they're like, oh, maybe personal training school. And so I've always been interested in health because I've struggled with my own appearance and having body dysmorphia. And first in eighth grade being like 190 pounds, and then freshman year of high school I lost 40 pounds playing football. And then I realized, wow, people started treating me different. And so it was confusing, because my parents are from Ukraine. They don't have American standards in their mind, so I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I felt alone, and the advice that they would give me maybe would apply in Ukraine, but it doesn't apply here in America with our culture. And so I'm like, well, I don't know who to talk to. There's no wise people around me that I can talk to that can apply. So I had to reflect and introspect and be introspective on my own thoughts, and it took a lot of time. And so what I noticed, there was this constant thing of like trying all these fads, and my mom would be like, oh, you're getting fat, you want to try diet pill? And then so I'm like 15 years old taking diet pills and working out, and I'm like trying to take some protein, whatever. And then so at 18 I started working out by myself after high school. I was a bouncer, working at GNC, playing semi-professional football. And so I started exercising, and I was like, wow, I noticed in high school that exercise really fixes your body up pretty well. So then I started bulking, and then I was like, man, I'm kind of fat, I should probably see what all these bodybuilders are doing. So then I went on a cut and a chicken broccoli rice, and I was like, wow, exercise and diet really make a difference. And so then my parents saw this transformation. They're like, well, let's put him in personal training school. So I got a job at a big box gym, and then I ran into a guy who I was like, I kind of had this elite understanding even with no understanding. So I kind of had this like chip on my shoulder, and someone knocked me down a peg. I was like, where did you learn what you learned if you're so smart? And so they introduced me to Paul Chek, And then I didn't look him up. All I did was I started buying his courses and going, and I was like, this is the missing piece to all of the stuff that I've been thinking about. And that's kind of how it started. And then I kept applying and applying and applying. Started almost 20 years ago.
Okay, great. I love that. And so, what do you see today with your clients and, those that are working with? What are some of the misconceptions that you see around nutrition, health, working out, mindset? There's so much stuff out there. Now we have peptides. People are talking about creatine. Like there's a lot, and I think most people don't really know where to start unless they're like actively listening to podcasts and doing research to get healthy. So what are just some few misconceptions that you see a lot with some of your clients that you can debunk?
One that no barely anyone does the basics. They try to go to the high level and they ignore, like, do you drink enough water? Do you cut out inflammatory foods? Do you go to sleep on time? Do you go, like, oh, I don't believe in sleep? Well, then keep being in pain then. Keep your brain, keep having your brain not be functioning at its optimal level. Do you poop? Like, we talk about these kind of things. Like, what is, for women, it's like, what is your cycle? Are you tracking your cycle? Do you know what your hormones are doing? They're not doing the basic level of things that cause optimal health, and they jump right to these Wolverine protocols that optimize you, but then you ignore everything else. And I mean, you understand business. It's like someone, you see on Instagram, you see people like leverage debt. That's how you do it, but you still have to know how to leverage it properly to get a more of a return. And so people are trying to leverage other things that are beyond their comprehension, because they're not doing the basics. They don't have good budgeting, money management, and they don't have their own currency and money management of their mind and their own emotions. And they still, how many clients will go, I go, hey, you got to cut out drinking. It's really messing up your testosterone. It's messing up your sleep. It's causing cortisol dysfunctions. And they go, well, during business meetings, I have to drink. I want to be social. And I go, no, you think that's what you need to do to make a sale. You don't need
Yeah.
to. So there's all these fitting in concepts. And then also, to add another layer to it, is there's so many people out there saying that there's one way to do it and it's my way, versus the way I look at it is, how does your body function the best, and then let's make it your way for your body. Because every car I valeted, even when I was like 17 years old, and what I even noticed at the time, that every car drives different. Every car has a certain turn radius. Every car has a different way that the steering wheel plays, and more aggressive and a little bit softer on the others. And so people are no different, and we compare people to cars, but you can take a car apart bolt by bolt and put it back together and it'll be the same car, but you can't do that to a person. So you start
Mm.
introducing things that are way ahead of what their experience is, and they don't even have a way of quantifying if it's working or not. Like, you can look at a P&L or a balance sheet and go, wow, this is a good return, this is good, acquisition cost numbers, this is good cost per click. But on your body, if you're not even paying attention to the basic things, and you're using like a wearable to tell you what your heart rate is, but you don't even know what your heart rate is without a wearable, then you've already lost part of that. You can't tell when your blood pressure is going up, when your blood sugar is going down. How are you doing? Are you even breathing properly? They don't know the basics because no one ever teaches them. And most times you go on Instagram and you see a yogi breathing with their chest. Well, that's the wrong way to breathe. So it's ironic. Like, you're learning how to create a sympathetic drive. So there's a lot of misconceptions out there that are like fast food dieting, and no one wants to put their money in this long-term investment that yields 10% and compounds, because they're thinking about, like, how do I short the market to get this huge return, and then they lose their money, and then it keeps happening, and then they get injured, then they get, their family could go. I mean, there's so many different things.
It's interesting. There's two things that you said that caught my attention. One is the breathing, because breath is such a crucial part to not only health, but also just business and emotional intelligence. And most people breathe with their chest versus their diaphragm, right? The diaphragmatic breath, that is really where we need to be breathing from. And the second thing that you said that sparked just the thought in me is that most people don't do the basics and don't necessarily feel the impact of them yet. And so they think that they're just being like, they're hustling and they're being optimal. And it's not until later in the years that, God forbid, cancer or heart disease or hypertension, all of those behaviors that we did that we didn't feel in the moment catch up with us. And I see so many people that say, I've lived a very healthy life. How did I get this? How did I get this disease? How do I have diabetes? And they didn't recognize that, like, the not sleeping, the not drinking the water, the eating the processed foods, even though they say fat free on them or sugar free, all of those things compounded and then made them sick later. So Tell me a little bit about what are some of the first steps that you provide to your clients or anyone that's listening today to like get up and take action.
If we can relate it to business, is look at where your leaks are. Look where your fundamental shortcomings are. And here's where this kind of gets interesting, is because most people think they're eating well. Every single person comes in and goes, yeah, 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 I got my diet in order, don't worry. And they don't, because most people have an idea that what they're doing is healthy, and yet it's causing them the most problems. I would say one of the things that no one really talks about on the internet is pay attention to what your farts smell like and what your poops look like. If your farts smell like eggs, like eliminate eggs, because it's not digesting through your system. And so, the things of, cutting out gluten, cutting out dairy, your face is like, there's some certain allergens that need to be cut out if people want to get a baseline. Most people don't want to do it. In the same way, it's almost like hiring your family. You don't want to fire them because you already have an emotional attachment to either the outcome of what happens if you cut it out, because like, oh, now your family is going to be making fun of you. Oh, you don't, oh, another gluten person. And it's one of those things where there is some time that has to occur before you see the return. And you don't really actually see the return until you go back. And so most people, when they cut out, let's say, gluten or dairy, and how many times I've heard I can't live without cheese, and it's like, oh, then you probably should, because you should probably live without a thing that's harming you. You should find out. And or cutting out eggs, or cutting out, artificial sweeteners and dyes, and being more attentive to what is on a label of food products. And people then go, oh, I don't know what there is to eat. Meat, potatoes, like vegetables, fruit, like all meats, all starches, all fruits, are perfectly fine. And it's when people cut that out, they don't notice that they're feeling better, because their threshold is getting pushed higher and higher and higher and higher. Then they go on their birthday and they have some chocolate cake, and then they feel atrocious. It's the same thing with alcohol. They don't notice that their body's feeling terrible, and then they cut it out, and all of a sudden. So I would say that's where I would start with people, is looking at, well, what are the processed food that I'm eating, and can I go eat whole foods? Can I eat minimally processed food? What can I replace? If I don't want to go to that nth degree, what can I replace with organic? And if it still has sugar, that's okay. If I'm drinking Coca-Cola, how do I cut that down? Starting with those kind of things, because sugar will cut off your immune system for at least 4 hours. And so when you're talking about having like runny noses, earwax buildup, mucus in your throat, you're getting sick all the time, and then you're also eating processed sugar, your body doesn't have a chance to repair the immune system. So it's going to keep knocking you down, and you're going to go, I tried everything except the very things that are essential. Making sure you're drinking water. Like, are you drinking half your body weight of ounces of water a day? And I would say even more than that, but that's a good start. So there's some basic. Are you going to bed at the same time every day? 10 getting up at 6, or 9 getting up at 5. Is it consistent so your rhythms can stabilize? But none of the stuff is really that sexy. Like, it's the fundamentals are things that you do every day. You go to the bathroom, everyone wipes, I imagine, or they use a bidet.
Today.
They use something to clean up, right? There's no one that skips that step that I know of. And so there's certain rhythms and routines that we all are accustomed to, and we can reaccustom ourselves to new things. But
Let me ask you something. What if you had world-class leadership and confidence training available 24/7, right at your fingertips? That's what we've created with the Rise Up For You Success Academy. So for less than $1,000 a year, you'll find hundreds of on-demand training videos, live group coaching every month, exclusive assessments, one-to-one coaching, and tools designed to help you grow your confidence, sharpen your leadership, improve how you communicate, business strategy, and so much more. So whether you're an individual looking to accelerate your career or your business, or maybe you're a company that wants to invest in your people, the Success Academy is your professional growth hub. Don't wait until the next opportunity passes you by. Join us today at riseupforyou.com. Head to our academy and unlock your next level of success. Break down for us, because I think not everybody has the same understanding of processed foods. Break down processed foods. Some people don't recognize that, like, pasta is a processed food, or bread. They think that it's healthy. So I'm curious about, tell us what processed foods are so that our listeners truly understand what that looks like.
yeah, I mean, you can argue that term, that like everything is going to have a process. The more it goes away from being a whole food, the more processed it becomes. So when you're talking about having wheat, grinding it up and then cooking it and then packaging it, there is a process, but then you can say, well, the process of that is minimal. Let's say you have real pasta. Let's say, you can make the same pasta at home, but then you put it into a box and plastic vacuum seal. Well, now you call it plastic, but you can have at home food. But what if you did the same thing but sold it at a farmer's market? Well, now you have processed food. So even though you made it with, eggs and flour and water and butter, and you made your own wheat, made your own pasta, you've created a process, and you've taken wheat and you turned it into a food, but now you've packaged it, and that's what people call processed food. And I call that packaged foods. The more ingredients and more steps you have, the more the process is involved, the more processed it becomes, in my idea. And the more you add to it and it becomes less of the real thing that you started with, the more of a process it becomes. For example, when you take cookies, and you can have the same kind of process as pasta, but when you add sugar and you make a cookie, you can make a very unprocessed cookie. But then you can also take wheat and then you bleach it and then you chop it up, and then you have all these other ingredients, and you look at the ingredient list and you take chemicals and you look at how every one of those chemicals is made, and then you combine all those, and then it turns into this really pretty unidentifiable thing to what you make at home. Going like, how did we get from wheat, flour, eggs and butter, and to this? And so
Yeah.
the more of the process we have, and the more chemicals we have, and the more additives we have, and the more fortification we have, the more processed it becomes. And so the more ingredients you have that you may not be able to recognize, the more processed you get.
Yeah. So, and that's why I've been hearing the term lately, like ultra processed foods versus, packaged and processed. Ultra processed being like Cheetos and the Takis and, that kind of stuff. So, what is your take on oils? We hear like olive oil is good for you, canola oil is not, avocado maybe, grapeseed oil. So, like, what are your take on some of the oils that impact our body? Cooking
Um,
oils.
Cooking oils, I mean, you got to look at high temp cooking oils. So grease, lard, and tallows. Avocado oil is a high smoke point. I don't cook with olive oil. It burns and denatures really quickly and makes it hard to process. Even though there's a lot of good benefits to olive oil, you start cooking with it and maybe you like the flavor that it gives the food, but it's not the most beneficial way to extract it. You could top a salad, you cook your salmon, then top it with that, because it's not going to be sitting there at 200 degrees or 300 degrees like it was in the oven. It's going to be at a lower temperature, so it won't denature the fats and then release all the chemicals out of the fat, so your body can process them and use the fat soluble vitamins that comes out of it. But when you're talking about like tallow and animal fats and avocado, coconut oil, those don't break down until you get into a higher smoke point. So they're going to keep, because they're saturated fats and they don't fall apart, so they don't become rancid while you're cooking with them, and you can get more benefit out of that.
Yeah, yeah. So tallow, tallow, and what about ghee? What's your take on the recent craze that's happening specifically in North America, I would say, on peptides and using peptides to support health?
I would say that there's peptides that they've been using for a long time, and they're very good, very well researched, and it can help a lot of people in certain circumstances. They're almost like supplements in my eyes, where you're supplementing it to get a result. You're not using it to remove good behavior. It's almost like, I'll give you an example. You could hurt someone's feelings and you can buy them a gift, and then that makes them feel better. And then you stop hurting their feelings, so you don't have to go through this process of buying this person gifts. Money as a vehicle to get people past their behavior. And then it becomes a leverage tool. Like, hey, I'm going to be mean to you, but I'm going to buy you some cool stuff. So in my mind, you're using that to repair a relationship that you don't have to break. And so, people are using, let's say, BPC 157, TB 500. They've been researching it, studying it. There's, not as many negative effects as are positive. They kind of know what it does. Like, people have been using it. So, you have a ligament tear, you have a tendon tear, you have a muscle tear, you start like declining and you're trying to form at a high level, and it could help you get past certain hurdles, get you recovered, get you back in the gym faster. You can kind of see the error in your ways. I can need to train this. But a lot of people use it to basically not develop good exercise habits, not to listen to their body to rest. Your body is trying to tell you to rest, and you want to use these peptides to train harder. Well, that's not the way to get stronger. That's the way to get injured faster, because eventually you're going to outperform what the peptides can do. And what's the solution? More, or you
Yeah.
go to something stronger like a steroid, and then, or a testosterone, and then it becomes a whole different concoction. Now you're using your body like a guinea pig.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that's why they said that, like, for example, with Ozempic, most people gain their weight back about because they don't ever break the behavior. So the second they get off of it, the initial behavior behavior that created their circumstance is still there, right? Versus shifting the relationship that they have with food or nutrition or whatever it is. Tell me, is there anything else that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about today before I jump into the power section of our interview?
I don't think so. I don't think there's nothing in my mind that
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we covered a lot so far. So I'd love to jump into the power section. And the first question is just rapid fire questions. Is if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. What would be your golden nugget?
Like whatever, this is going to be okay. There's a quote that I heard a long time ago, and I don't know who quoted it, but it was basically saying that why are you worrying about the things when time and time again you've solved that problem over and over again? So why are you even worrying about it anymore?
Yeah. And what would you say out of all the power skills in the world, soft skills, human skills, what would you say is the top skill that you think is the most important to cultivate? For example, resilience or empathy. What would you say is like the top one?
I do like resilience. Kindness has a double-edged sword to it. Kindness, maybe kindness and boundaries. I would say because there's nothing wrong with being kind, but you got to learn how to wield kindness properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have one more question for you, but first, where can we connect with you, Alex? Where can the audience find you on social media, website? If they want to connect with you, where do we go for that?
We got for my coaching, it would be primalfusionhealth.com. And
Okay.
for my beef sticks, it'd be eatberski, BERSKI.com. And at health.performance.engineer is my personal Instagram. And then at eatberski on all social platforms is the beef sticks.
Great, great. And we'll make sure we put those in the show notes. And final question, as you know, we're the company Rise Up For You. What comes to your mind when you hear that phrase?
Rise up for you. What comes up for me is most importantly stand up for yourself first. And you know the saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you don't take care of yourself and you don't rise up for yourself, then eventually you won't be able to rise up for anybody, and you won't be good for anybody if you're sick. So now you're the pillar of support, and if you don't rise up for yourself, then you can't support anybody after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex, thank you so much for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. It was an honor to have you on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining us again and listening to the Rise Up For You podcast. If you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button below. We will see you next time, bringing you yet again another amazing thought leader, expert entrepreneur to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to add value and help you become your best. Thank you, everyone. And Alex, thank you again.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast. You know, every episode is designed to give you practical tools and strategies on success, entrepreneurship, leadership, and so much more. You know, the skills that actually help you be seen, be heard, and be relevant. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and any podcast platform, your favorite, so that you can catch weekly episodes with the leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world. We're all coming together for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help you be the best that you can be. Click the subscribe button below and share this episode. I'll see you next time.